Welcome to today's deep dive. You ready to talk resilience?
Absolutely. Always ready to unpack that, especially through these stories, mistakes I made at work. So interesting.
Yeah, we all love those highlight reels. But this is like the behind the scenes where the good stuff really is.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
who hasn't tripped on their way up the career ladder? Am I right?
Seriously, it's like, oh, you tripped. Me too. Tell me more about it.
Exactly. And this book, it's not just like, oh, I messed up, here's the lesson. It's deeper.
Oh, for sure.
It's like, how'd you bounce back? What'd you learn?
Okay, so speaking of bouncing back, let's talk about Laurel Tooby. Built an empire with Media Bistro, but even she had those, wait, what, moments early on.
Right. And hers, it's at Working Woman magazine, clashing with the new editor-in-chief. Classic.
Oh, those power dynamics. Oof. I can only imagine.
And to be, she's always been about authenticity, speaking her mind, which amazing, but in some workplaces, it's almost like there's a strategy to it, you know?
Oh, totally. Like picking your battles, right? How do you even learn that balance between being true to you and then, like, not getting yourself in hot water all the time?
Right. And that's what I think is so interesting about her story. It's like sometimes being strategic, IS, being authentic in a way, it's picking your moment.
Makes you think.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about when you do speak up and it totally backfires? Like, is there ever a time it's worth risking it all just to stay true to yourself?
Oh, man. That's the question, isn't it? Talk about a tough one. And it makes me think of Rachel Simmons. She wrote Odd Girl Out. Remember that book?
Oh my gosh, I devoured that in high school. It was like everyone was reading it.
Right. So she talks about this time she was going for a scholarship at Oxford. Dream come true, right? Except not so much.
Really. Oxford. What could be wrong with Oxford?
For her, it was the wrong fit. Academically, socially, the whole thing. She even says it in the book. She felt like she was on, quote, someone else's treadmill. Isn't that perfect?
Wow. So it wasn't Oxford itself. It was more like she was on someone else's path instead
Right.
of her own.
Exactly. And the courage it must have taken to walk away from that. I mean, that's huge to realize this is an Emmy, even if it looks amazing.
It's like, that's the dream, right? Oxford. And you're going to walk away.
Ah.
That's some serious self-awareness right there.
Totally, but it's not always that clear cut in the moment, you know? It takes time to tune into that inner voice.
Oh, absolutely. It's like sometimes you got to get a little lost to find your way. You know what I mean?
100%. And sometimes that means ditching the whole I've got it all figured out act. It can be freeing.
Oh, tell me about it. So relatable. Speaking of Lisa Lutz, the crime writer, she's got a story about this.
Oh, yeah, hers is great. So her first book blows up, right? Bestseller, the whole deal. And she has to give this speech.
No way. Stage fright. I would die.
Kinda, but it's deeper than that. She realized she's caught up in the success, but hadn't figured out how to actually talk about it. Herself, even. Authentically.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like you're supposed to be this expert, but inside you're like, I just got lucky. I don't know.
Exactly. And I think people really connect with that honesty. You know, it's like, okay, maybe I don't need to have it all figured out perfectly either.
Right. Permission to be a work in progress, which we all are. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But okay, what about when you have to be the one in charge? Make the tough calls.
Oh, that's a whole other level. And this story from the book, it's perfect for this. Reshma Saujani, former congresswoman, she talks about election night, and it's not going well, let's just say.
Oof, I can't even imagine that pressure. So what'd she do?
So someone's like, hey, we might want to start thinking about a concession speech. And she's in denial, obviously. But then she realizes, gotta face the
So
music.
she gave in, wrote the speech.
She did. But here's the thing. It wasn't just any speech. She used it to show resilience right there in real time. Talked about her values, the fight, even in losing.
That's amazing. Turning a loss into like a lesson for everyone watching.
Exactly. And she talks about how her young campaign manager was right there with her. And she felt like, I have to model this. So powerful.
It's like your actions speak so loud, even when you don't realize it.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of high pressure, how about ER doctor pressure?
Oh, yeah, Danielle Ofri. Her story is intense. She's a resident dealing with this patient, really serious diabetic situation.
Oh, wow. Life or death stuff.
Totally. And she makes a call about the insulin dosage, but then a senior resident, right in front of everyone, questions her harshly.
Oh my gosh, talk about being put on the spot. So was she wrong?
Turns out she was right. But in the moment, she froze, doubted herself, the works. Later, she realizes she could have really helped that patient, but she let the doubt creep in.
Oof, that's a tough one. But man, it's so easy to second guess yourself. especially with someone breathing down your neck like that.
For sure. And for her, it was about learning it's okay to ask for help, even when you're the one calling the shots.
Right. It's like being strong isn't always about having all the answers. Sometimes it's about knowing when to reach out.
100%. And that whole asking for help thing, it can
Yeah.
be so hard, especially when everyone's trying to get ahead.
Oh, tell me about it. So, cutthroat some places. Okay, did you read Ann Moore's story?
The former CEO, oh yeah, hers is interesting. Early in her career, we're talking like fudging the numbers kind of mistake.
Whoa, seriously? That's like next level. What happened?
So she's a consultant analyzing all this data, right? But when it's time to present the chart, it just wasn't clicking, even though the data itself was fine.
So what'd she do? Just make something up?
Basically, she tweaked the numbers just a bit to make the chart match what she knew the data was saying.
I mean, I get the impulse, but still risky. Did it work?
Short term, yeah. But looking back, she's like, nope, that was a mistake. Ethically, career-wise, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, so what'd she learn? Besides, don't fudge your numbers.
It's funny, it actually made her realize her strength wasn't the number crunching itself. It was the problem solving, the big picture thinking.
Oh, interesting. So a mistake about numbers led to like a self-discovery about her skills. Love that.
Right. Mistakes as like these weird career guides. Who knew? But it makes sense. They force you to look at what happened, what you do differently.
Total course correction.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about finding your voice, trusting your gut, asking for help when you need it. What else makes someone resilient in the workplace? Right? It's like, what are we even good at sometimes? Mistakes help you figure that out, I guess.
Totally. And Selena Rizvani talks about this. You know, she writes about women in leadership. It's that whole good girl thing, right? Like, don't rock the boat. Don't be too pushy.
Oh my gosh, the worst. We're like conditioned to be small, you know?
Totally. And Rizvani, she realized that was holding her back big time at work, everywhere. She even talks about how in class, women would be like, this might be a silly idea, but, and the guys would just launch right in.
Oh, stop. It's so true. I've totally done that. Silly idea, but ugh.
Yeah.
So did she break out of it?
She did. It started with noticing it, then like consciously changing how she communicated, even little things, you know? She tells the story about like trying to set boundaries with her roommates and how hard that was.
Well, I feel that.
Yeah.
Just asking for what you need. Terrifying sometimes. So what'd she do?
Baby steps, you know? Pushing past that comfort zone little by little, realizing that staying silent was actually worse.
Man, that's brave. Speaking up, even when it's scary. Any tips from her?
Saying no is huge, she says. And not just to like extra work, but to that voice in your head that's like, you're not good enough.
Ooh, that's good. It's like giving yourself permission to have needs, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Carla Harris from Morgan Stanley, she talks about that too.
Yes. Early on, she was all about saying yes to everything. Impress everyone, climb that ladder. Burnout city.
Oh, I know that city well. Been there, done that.
Right. So she learned saying no to some things meant saying a big fat yes to the things that mattered.
Makes sense. It's like protecting your energy so you can actually show up for the things that light you up.
100%. And speaking of protecting your energy, Anna Holmes, she started Jezebel. She's got a story about bad bosses.
Ugh, the worst. They can really mess with your head, you know?
Totally. And hers, it was this boss who just like constantly undermined her, made her doubt herself.
Oof, I had a boss like that once. It's like their bad mood becomes your problem.
Right. And at first, Holmes is like taking it all in, thinking it's her fault, but then light bulb moment. It's not me, it's them.
So important to remember that. Easier said than done, though, am I right?
For sure, but that's what's so great about her story. It's like you get to choose how you react to that kind of energy.
Love that. Reclaiming your power. So big takeaway from all these stories, if we had to pick one.
Resilience. It's not a finish line, you know? It's a journey. You build it as you go through all the ups and downs.
Not about being perfect, it's about learning from the mess-ups. And sometimes, those mess-ups, they lead to the best aha moments.
Totally. And I think these women, their stories prove that. It's about getting back up, dusting yourself off, and being like, okay, what'd I learn?
And on that note, listeners, we've got a little homework for you. Think about a time you messed up at work. We've all been there. But instead of the mistake itself, focus on what you learned. What's one good thing that came out of it? Until next time, keep diving deep.